So, you did the assignment, great job. Now we're going to rehearse one thing. And my day job is I direct films, so let's see how you do. Let's see how I do, okay? Margot and I are going to hold up a sign. And what I'd love for you to do is read the sign out loud and see if we can read it in unison, okay? Here's the sign. That was fantastic! Okay, here we go. Here we go. We're going to fly now. So, 2 mics. Okay, so my name is Peter Hedges. I'm a 5th generation Iowan. I was born 2 miles west of here at Methodist Hospital. I was raised in West Des Moines. My minister father was a Bob Ray Republican, and my mother, a therapist and artist, was a Harold Hughes, Tom Harkin Democrat. I delivered the Des Moines Register to former Senator John Colbert. After graduating from Valley High School, I set out at 18 to pursue a life in art, theater, and film. I ended up in New York City, where I met and married a Brooklyn girl. And that was a wise thing, because she's astonishing. Anyway, I stand here before you 46 years later, because while I may have left Iowa, it turns out Iowa never left me. Largely due to 2 teachers, Jim and Cindy Lamson, who irrevocably altered and bettered the course of my life. That's my introduction.
And I'm Margot.
So it's reasonable to wonder. It's reasonable to wonder about Margot. But it's also reasonable to ask, who is this group, Iowans for Decency? And how did we get here? A little backstory. In January of 2025, in the hazy days following the unfathomable re-inauguration of our now 47th president, like many of you, I was in shock. I couldn't believe that we had re-elected him. I feared that the foundation on which our fierce but fragile country has been built would be at great risk, and in those dark days, I was desperate. And one day, while doom scrolling on my phone, I started deep diving into the Facebook posts of people I had known in high school. I found 2 who were clearly as upset and undone as I was, and then, as a bit of a Hail Mary, I reached out to both of them and asked if they might be willing to commiserate over Zoom. And to my surprise, they came back with a quick and enthusiastic, and I'm so grateful for it, yes.
One of my closest friends from high school, Chris Maurer Irvine, who wishes she could be here today but is at a high school graduation, and I were at the first meeting. It felt good and right to connect with dear friends from a time past, to talk about the scary future that now lay before us. Talking with people that shared a history of an Iowa that was inclusive and open, made it feel alive again. For a moment, it felt like we were able to cross years and miles to recreate a small connection, a tiny community that felt hopeful and supportive. We decided to meet again and to grow our group. We each agreed to invite someone from our past. I reached out to someone I barely knew in high school, but whose passionate, fiery Facebook posts made me think he'd be a great addition. At the end of our second gathering, Patrick Stanley, BH class of 81, finally spoke, saying, "Enough with the talking. What are we doing? What are we going to do?"
I'm not Patrick. I didn't go to Valley High School, but I am his lucky husband, and he did. While I've been a farmer my entire life, he's been farming since 2005 when we bought our farm in Marion County. The teachers at Valley High School grounded Patrick with the tools to pursue a life of meaning, purpose, and service. One of them, Mr. Horseman, had a sign in his homeroom that said, "All are welcome here, gay or straight." That was the first time Patrick saw a public affirmation of himself as a gay teenager. Valley teachers taught him to think outside the box. They showed him what it meant to have empathy. For 20 years, Patrick Stanley, farmer, rural Iowan, Valley High School class of 1981, has leaned on those values his public school teachers taught him as he invested in the kids that worked on our farm, the people we fed, the land that grew food and provided environmental benefits, and the communities that sustained us and our farm. The values of the Trump administration support very little of any of that. They've found new ways to use public policy to be cruel and indecent. Our members of Congress have supported the priorities of President Trump and abandoned the very values that Iowans have learned from our dedicated public school teachers for over 150 years. That's what's at stake in 2026. Patrick and I, we've benefited from agriculture and rural policies that have made investments in farms like ours. Every day for 20 years, Patrick dedicated his career to growing plants, tending livestock, and working with our neighbors. He's been a part of the amazing and diverse story of American agriculture. We've had so much support from the American public, not just buying what we grow, but with their investments through USDA programs that helped us add so many soil saving and water quality improvements to our farm. President Trump has slashed this support, and Iowa's congressional delegation has either stood by silently or even cheered on those cuts. We need to organize, stand up, and speak out to support leaders willing to return to the values that teachers at Valley High School and teachers in every corner of this state have dedicated their careers to teaching and living. We need the values of the teachers we will be hearing from today. These are the values Patrick has spent 2 decades putting to good use as a first-generation Iowa farmer.
Patrick Stanley grew up around the corner from where I grew up. And on that same street in February 1979, Mrs. Eileen Hickey, who lived down the street, nearly died after childbirth. My dad made a pot of soup because that's what good neighbors do. I was 8 years old when my 6-year-old little brother, Phil, and I slowly inched our way down the block, careful not to spill a drop. 6 houses later, we made it to the Hickeys' front porch. I rang their doorbell, and 9-year-old Patrick opened the door.
Good morning, everyone. I am Patrick Hickey, and like my friend Peter, I'm a proud alumnus of Valley High, class of 1980. One Valley teacher in particular, Mr. Carol Yearns, had a lasting and profound impact on my life. When I took his Russian history course, he taught us that only by understanding the Russians as people, rather than as opponents, could we overcome the insane nuclear standoff the world faced in 1980. Mr. Yearns also did something more. He showed me through his own military background how U.S. government service could be both an obligation and a calling. I kept that valuable example in mind as I first attained a master's degree in Soviet foreign and military policy, and then I served for nearly 40 years as an international affairs analyst for Congress's watchdog agency, the GAO. In that time, I assessed America's support for over 70 international humanitarian relief and peacekeeping efforts to ensure our aid was used in a way that not only maximized the lives saved and bettered the chances for lasting peace, but promoted international support for U.S. leadership on many other global issues. Within days of taking office in 2025, Trump swept away the very infrastructure to which I dedicated my entire working life. He terminated the U.S. Agency for International Development, gutted the State Department, abandoned billions of dollars worth of foreign aid projects, and left hundreds of tons of undelivered medicines and food aid that you pay for to rot in warehouses. It is estimated that as many as 600,000 people around the world, mostly young children, died in 2025 as a result of Trump's decisions. At this point, I decided to retire from public service, but not to surrender. That is why I'm so happy to join here with my friends, classmates, and former teachers in the fight to bring decency back not only to Iowa, but to our nation's foreign policy. Now, for any of you captains who were wondering about how my mother fared after Peter and his brother delivered that soup to our door back in 1971, I am happy to report she survived, thrived, and delivered a healthy baby girl, my sister Mary Catherine. Back there, take him out, that's okay. Mary grew up alongside a little boy living next door, and I vividly remember how the two spent many hours together riding their big wheels up and down our block on 23rd Street. And where's that not-so-little boy now? He's standing right next to me.
My name is Belin, or for you, Patrick, it's Dr. William Stapleton. The teacher that most impacted me was Ivan Gilbert. Fair, equitable, gentle, Mr. Gilbert always showed complete command of the material and joy in teaching. Mr. Gilbert even let me help him clean glassware for the labs, a job that stuck with me. I wish he was here today, but he succumbed to cancer and passed away at age 43, the summer after my freshman year in college. I wish I could thank him for inspiring me to pursue a biology major and study molecular biology, earning a master's and then later a PhD. I became a postdoctoral researcher and eventually an associate scientist. The work I did benefited from research grants from the American Heart Association as a pre-doctoral grant and the NIH as a postdoctoral training grant. Due to a debilitating cancer, I needed to stop my research in 2010. What upsets me and angers me the most? Massive cuts to research. Research funds that consistently generate jobs and have an economic impact. $2.57 for every dollar invested, ultimately transforming $380 million worth of NIH award funding that had gone directly just to Iowa and turned it into $916 million in economic activity, supporting 4,400 jobs. So when Joni Ernst said we're all going to die with the draconian budget cuts to NIH funding, I want to say yes, and sooner than we should. Joni Ernst and Trump's appointed replacement was Ashley Hinson. What makes it even harder to fathom is that Ashley Hinson went to our same school. She walked the same halls, had the same teachers, but clearly she didn't learn the same values. Hinson true. It's absolutely true. Hinson's vote for tax cuts benefited the wealthiest taxpayers like Hinson herself. Her appropriations subcommittee justified deep cuts to science agencies nationwide. And how does this hurt Iowa? Well, there was a 60% collapse in NIH research funding. University of Iowa alone was facing a $33.5 million shortfall. In addition, Hinson mischaracterized these budget cuts to her constituents at her own town hall meetings. So I sent out a text to our group and I said, hey everybody, did you know that Representative Ashley Hinson went to our school?
So that's just 4 of our members. We have over 250 now. These 4 happen to live essentially on the same street. In the middle of the night, it occurred to me that we've missed a person that we need to speak about. So I'm going off script. Billy Staplin, Dr. William Staplin, is the remarkable son of 2 astonishing teachers. Dr. Carl Staplin taught organ. He was a professor of organ music at Drake and a major force in organ everywhere. And then Dr. Phyllis Staplin, who, if you know of her impact in West Des Moines, you know that her legacy has been honored by the Performing Arts Center at Valley, was named in her name, in her honor. I know her best as Mrs. Staplin because she was my piano teacher. I was her only boy pupil, and I never practiced. And she had the decency to never make me feel bad about it. She's much missed, and I think Billy, she would be so proud of you. So proud of you, as we all are. My teachers, as I said, were Jim and Cindy Lamson. And when I was in junior high and Billy was in elementary school, or maybe even younger, maybe even preschool, my family almost moved to Cedar Rapids. It was this close to happening. And I know I do this thought exercise that's a wonderful life type of exercise where you try to imagine your life. And my movie is, what if we moved to Cedar Rapids? And I can understand the impact of those 2 teachers on my life, because if we had moved, I would have no life that resembles anything like the life I now lead, because of their profound impact on me. I write about it a lot. I talk about it a lot. If you see What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Mr. Lamson and Mrs. Lamson are in the movie. If you watch The Odd Life of Timothy Green, Jim and Cindy are the main characters. I put their names everywhere, and I come back to Iowa because I can't get enough of them. But God damn it, Joni Ernst was right. We're all gonna die. And last April, we lost Mr. Lamson. And in late June, we gathered to celebrate his remarkable life. And Mr. Lamson is just that gift that keeps on giving, because even in his untenable death, as hundreds gathered to celebrate his astonishing life, his love-filled life, his life of service, I looked up, and standing before me after the celebration, I looked up, and standing before me was my favorite, I never thought I would see again, history teacher, Mr. Chuck Lawrenson. And I reminded Mr. Lawrenson right away, what a tough grader he was. I even reminded him of the grade he'd given me, which is seared in my memory, a grade I'm sure I earned. And I also said that I wish I'd been a better student and that I was ready now. Then I told him about Iowans for Decency, and he asked if he could join one of our meetings. And he was at the very next one. And then the one after that. And during a visit last September to Des Moines, we met at Panera in Urbandale. Who knew? What a spot. And he was flanked by two former teachers who both started coming to our meetings. And soon all three were bringing more and more educators into Iowans for Decency. And it became all too clear that they had something important to say. So it's my great honor, honestly, it's an honor of a lifetime, to call forward a group of former West Des Moines educators. Please know that for each one of them standing here before you, there are at least 4 others who stand with them. Of the over 60 teachers who are a part of today's event, their collective teaching experience totals well over 2,000 years. If I could say anything to Ashley Hinson, it's exactly what I'm about to say to all of us. Listen. Listen to the teachers.
Dear U.S. Congressman Ashley Hinson, we write to you today as independents, Republicans, and Democrats. We are former educators from West Des Moines Schools, the school district where you were raised and received an excellent education. We have spent our teaching careers teaching students various disciplines so that they can thrive. They can develop the knowledge and the skills and character to thrive in a diverse and changing world. We taught our students to be decent, upstanding citizens, to be proud Iowans, to promote peace, to be fair and just, to be kind, to be fiscally responsible, to help the less fortunate, to respect nature, to value education, to seek the truth, to be healthy, to make friends, to be honest, to accept others, and to have integrity, and to take responsibility for their actions. We want you to know how disappointed we are with you as a United States Congresswoman. Your votes, allegiances, and loyalties do not respect common decency, the heart of what we wanted you to learn here. We believe it's not time for you to graduate to the United States Senate, but rather for you to reflect. Who have you become?
Dear Ashley, who have you become?
Dear Ashley, as a United States Congresswoman, you have failed to demonstrate decency. Your support of the President's reckless tariffs eliminated future markets to sell Iowa's crops. The miraculous bailout Farmers Bridge Assistance Program was insufficient and too late. Iowa now is the state with the 3rd largest number of farm bankruptcies and dead last for economic growth. Why did you vote against Iowa?
Dear Ashley, why did you vote against Iowa?
Dear Ashley, you backed a president who renamed the Department of Defense the Department of War as he bombed 7 countries and started a costly and unprovoked war in the Middle East. You smiled as the Iowa delegation used the solemn ceremony of returning war dead to American soil for a photo opportunity. This included one of Valley High School's own. Why don't you want peace?
Dear Ashley, why don't you want peace?
Dear Ashley, you supported an administration that has ripped legal temporary status away from courageous immigrants who came to America for a better life. By staying silent, you supported criminalizing immigration and detaining people, deporting long-time residents, and separating families without due process of law. 2 American citizen protesters were killed by ICE. You stated that you stand with ICE and helped introduce the Protect and Respect ICE Act. Why don't you want to be kind, fair, and just?
Dear Ashley, why don't you want to be kind, fair, and just?
Dear Ashley, you touted protecting taxpayers' hard-earned dollars and giving the middle class a tax break. But you voted to add $3.4 trillion to our national debt of $39 million. Taxpayers have already spent over $25 million for a war in Iran. You continue to support a president who is asking for another $200 billion for that war on top of $1.5 trillion defense budget request for 2027. That's a 40% increase. Why aren't you fiscally responsible?
Dear Ashley, why aren't you fiscally responsible?
Dear Ashley, to fund tax breaks for billionaires, only 2 in Iowa, you voted for cuts to SNAP, impacting 270,000 users in Iowa. The proposed Republican community eligibility provision threshold for free school lunches will impact 122,946 hungry children in Iowa. Why don't you help the less fortunate?
Dear Ashley, why don't you help the less fortunate?
Dear Ashley, you voted to reverse public land protections and fast-track fossil fuels. You cheered out a president who withdrew from the UN Framework Coalition of Climate Change and reversed protections in the Clean Air and Water Acts. You gutted the EPA. You supported these actions despite Iowa's cancer rates and nitrate numbers being the highest in the nation. Why don't you respect nature?
Dear Ashley, why don't you respect nature?
Dear Ashley, you received an outstanding public education in West Des Moines. However, now because of your record of defunding districts and privatizing education in Iowa, we are fearful of what you will do to further dismantle public education as a senator. You back an administration who has hollowed out the Department of Education, reversed civil rights protections, wiped out higher education funds, and eliminated programs for our most vulnerable students. Why don't you value education for others?
Dear Ashley, why don't you value education for others?
Dear Ashley, as a former broadcaster, you stayed silent as Republican-aligned FCC's Brendan Carr
celebrated departed journalists and the Larry Ellison consolidated propaganda monopoly. You dismantled news by voting to cut PBS and NPR, citing they, quote, are no longer a good use of taxpayer dollars, end quote. Why are you afraid of the truth?
Dear Ashley, why are you afraid of the truth?
Dear Ashley, you voted for at least 86,000 Iowans to become uninsured. Rural hospitals are being forced to cut services and close. Iowa is ranked as one of the lowest for female health providers. As a United States Senator, you would be able to confirm appointees who disregard science and slash medical research, making us more vulnerable to outbreaks like measles and life-threatening diseases. Why don't you want others to be healthy?
Dear Ashley, why don't you want others to be healthy?
Dear Ashley, you supported the president as he alienated our oldest allies by imposing extreme tariffs, threatening to take Greenland, insulting NATO countries, and suggesting Ukraine shares the blame in the war with Russia. You even voted to support the president's emergency tariffs on Canada, when many of your Republican colleagues did not. Why do you want to hurt our friends?
Dear Ashley, why do you want to hurt our friends?
Dear Ashley, honesty is important. Your personal ambition has clouded your character. In 2022, you tweeted that you, quote, secured $829 million in federal funding to upgrade locks and dams along the upper Mississippi River, when you actually voted against it. In 2024, you stated, quote, FEMA has spent hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars supporting illegal immigrants. Meanwhile, Americans impacted by horrific natural disasters are left in the lurch, unquote. That wasn't true. Your constituents who know you, boo you, and call you a liar. Why aren't you honest?
Dear Ashley, why aren't you honest?
Dear Ashley, you displayed your disapproval when you publicly announced woke nonsense will not be tolerated, and supported DOGE cuts which dismantled funding, programming, and practices to help people of color. You voted against the Marriage Equality Act in 2022 when 39 of your Republican colleagues backed the bipartisan legislation. Why don't you accept others?
Dear Ashley, why don't you accept others?
Dear Ashley, you claim that you will be the president's biggest ally in the Senate. This is a man who is a felon, convicted felon, and has personally profited himself as well as his family members to the tune of several billions of dollars in his second term. Merch, media lawsuits, crypto, Gulf real estate, and meme coins are just a few of the ways that the president has pocketed billions. You remain silent and his champion. Why don't you act with integrity?
Dear Ashley, why don't you act with integrity?
Dear Ashley, the saddest part of your legacy, so closely coupled with our current president, is our future. War rages, economies teeter, lies replace truth, authoritarian creeps, rule of law is ignored, international agreements are erased, allies are abused, citizens are murdered, and science is dismissed. As the world watches, our global standing diminishes. Our future power vanishes. Why don't you take responsibility for your actions?
Dear Ashley, why don't you take responsibility for your actions?
We are saddened and disappointed by your votes, loyalties, and words as a United States Congresswoman. You are failing our state and country. Your actions are antithetical to good and just decency. We hoped you would learn stronger values after being raised in West Des Moines. And we would love to encourage a former student and native of our community to follow her ambitions. Our fragile country and world deserve better. Iowa needs a senator who will lead with decency. Therefore, as educators, citizens, and Iowans, we oppose your candidacy for the United States Senate. Respectfully, educators from Iowans for Decency.
Give it up for the teachers!
Margot, you're up. Hi. We just have a little more. It's important what's about to happen. Here we go, Margot. That was amazing, teachers. Thank you.
As a mother of 4 daughters, I worry a great deal about the future. So I was particularly touched when in one of our early meetings, Matt Russell implored us to keep in mind that one of the priorities of Iowans for Decency is to support and encourage young people. Matt, do you have more to add?
Yes, of course I do, Margot. We're in this critical defining moment where if we can empower young people, teenagers, 20-somethings, those in their early 30s, to help us lead, it's game over for Trump. If we fail to do it, if we fail, we're at risk, as farmers like to say, we're at risk of losing the whole damn load. It's not only listening, it's investing in them. It's investing in their ideas, in their solutions, and partnering with them in leadership. At Iowans for Decency, this is one of our highest priorities. So, it is my great privilege to introduce Courtney.
As a lifelong Iowa resident, I've had the privilege of learning from some amazing teachers, some of whom are with us today. They created welcoming classrooms that fostered curiosity, kindness, and honesty. In the years since I've left those classrooms, Iowa's Republican-controlled government has relentlessly undermined an educator's ability to provide students the level of education that they deserve. Not only through the ridiculous voucher program, which continues to eviscerate public education budgets, causing buildings to close and programs to be cut, but also by failing to provide students, faculty, and families with safe environments to learn inside and outside of the classroom. When I was in high school in 2015, I was told by a vice principal it wasn't if we would experience a mass shooting, it was when. The same presentation included tips on how to neutralize a shooter, including using our water bottles and textbooks as defensive weapons. Our government at every level has failed to protect children from gun violence. Instead, they decided subjecting students to mass casualty events is just part of the status quo now. I also remember that in my senior year in Mr. Reck's environmental science class in 2017, he trusted us to run our own experiments based on what had piqued our interest throughout the year, and I chose nitrate levels at 3 different locations along the Raccoon River near my home. As you may guess, the results were extremely alarming even then, and I can only guess how those levels have increased over the years. And yet Iowa Republican legislatures are pushing to decrease water quality testing, ignoring the ever-rising cancer rates in our state in favor of unethical profit. And just this week, I'm seeing footage from some presidential press event where they referred to American women as underbabied, blaming falling birth rates in this country on young women like me. They want me to bring children into a world that they are making utterly inhospitable to raising a family. Why would I subject a child to kneecapped public schools, politicians who are apathetic to childhood gun violence and increasingly toxic water? That is only a fraction of the issues that they could face. My potential future child deserves better. Iowans deserve better. This country deserves better. To extend kindness and decency to all. That responsibility has driven me to the Decency Social Club, a group of like-minded, community-driven young people who are fighting for the rights of all Iowans. We strive to educate, empower young people, to create change. We must stay engaged and hopeful for a better future, for ourselves and for those who will come after us. Thank you.
Hello, fellow students, alumni, and residents of Iowa. My name is Yasser Samir. I am a 2024 graduate of Valley High School. Right now, I am a current student at Drake University. I want to thank a person very dear to me and several others, Mrs. Gianna Puglisi. Gianna is a community outreach coordinator for the West Des Moines Community School District. But to me, she is a mentor. I wouldn't have made it this far without Gianna. She's instilled into me great values, such as a sense of community, honesty, and respect not only for myself, but for my peers as well. Which greatly frustrates me, as Ashley, you are a former Valley graduate, which means you have had the blessing to be taught and guided by these amazing teachers that you've seen today. Ashley, as a former alumni of Valley, I am ashamed to call you my peer. We have learned today that you are morally bankrupt, greedy, and worst of all, a charlatan. You take advantage of your people's trust to try and enact or support bills that benefit none of the people you claim to represent. I cannot, without any sense of morality or ethics, support your candidacy. Vote for decency.
They are the future. And if not for us, we need to do right and fight for them. Speaking of the future, before we finish, let's do a little thought exercise. Let's imagine that it's 25 years from now. The year is 2051. And we're all still magically here. You may be 148, but so be it. I will be, if I'm so lucky, 88 years old. So 25 years from now, imagine some future young person asks you. In my case, they would say Peter, or Mr. Hedges, or old guy, What were you doing back in 2025, 2026, when it all went down? What will your answer be? What evidence will we have left of how hard we fought and of how hard we tried to make it better? That's the story we each get to write. So what now? Keep thinking of Patrick Stanley from Ashworth Road at our second meeting. Enough with all the talking. What are we doing? What are we going to do? That is the question. What are we going to do? First of all, here's a thought. If you have or had a teacher that changed you, find them if they're still among us. They may be right here in this room today. Find them and thank or rethank them while you still can. And if they're no longer here in the physical realm, then join me. Join me in finding someone or many ones and do for them what was once done for me or for you. Another thing you can do, and this you can actually do, you can do right now. You can support our brave teachers. Our brave teachers. No teacher wants to call out a former student. They don't want to. It's a hard thing to do. It goes against every value they have. And that these teachers stood and told the truth today and asked this candidate to look deep in herself and before it's too late, turn herself around. Well, what can you do today? You can add your name to the letter. You can do it right here. There are going to be people with clipboards. Sign your name. If you don't want to sign it here, go on to our website. You'll be able to sign there. Sign your name. Okay, that's one thing. Another thing you can do, join us at Iowans for Decency. Oh, and by the way, if we're not the group for you, there are so many groups who could use your help. Progress Iowa, Swing Left, Neighbor to Neighbor, Indivisible. The list is endless. Here's the truth. No one person is going to save us. It will take all of us working together as one giant we. And finally, this last piece was written by one of our members, Tom Belin. We had a whole proclamation we were going to do, but I'm going to read his glorious words. At Iowans for Decency, we believe that the best ways to fulfill Iowa's promise of our liberties we prize and our rights we will maintain, and that the best ways to pursue shared goals of establishing justice, ensuring domestic tranquility, providing for the common defense, guaranteeing equal protection and due process of law, and promoting prosperity are to embrace decency in our political discourse, to listen and learn from the young, who are our future, and to move others in our community to join in advancing these goals through the exercise of our sacred and what we must protect, our right to vote. Therefore, let us pledge today to do all we can to elevate decency in our discourse and in all that we do. Thank you so much for coming today.